Rocky.
Oh, it's called Gloves Off with David Singer.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gloves Off with David Singer. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Oliver G. Gilbert, who is the vice chair of the Miami-Dade Commission. Hi, welcome. Thank you for attending.
Listen, thank you for having me. I want my own theme music. I want like my,
my
own theme music. Like,
I can probably arrange that for you if you want to do a show here.
Right before I come on, it's like I'm gonna play Trick Daddy or something. It's gonna be or Meek Mill. It's just I want my own theme music. That's gonna be incredible.
Hey, so before we get into it, let me share a little information about you in case some of the people who are watching don't know anything. Commissioner Oliver G. Gilbert III is progressive and a visionary leader who believes there is no singular path to success. Born and raised in Miami, city of Miami Gardens, he remains committed to pouring into the community that's helped groom him into public figure he is today. Commissioner Gilbert is proud graduate of Florida A&M University. By the way, I went to FSU, so we have something in common. Where he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice. Upon graduating, he enrolled in law school at St. Thomas University. He later transferred to the University of Miami. I went to school there too, where he held a Senate position with the Student Bar Association and was a national board member of the Black Law School Association, among other accolades. Upon successfully earning his Juris Doctorate with honors, Commissioner Gilbert knew his calling was public service.
Yeah.
Does that about say it all?
That sounds right. It sounds like so long ago though, David. I mean, it's like, time flies. Like I remember college like it was yesterday, but I remember, Prince Hall, and that's one of the apartment complexes. I remember Sampson Hall, that state. I remember college. I remember law school, but time flies. And so that's kind of, it really is important that if you have something to do it now. Do it now. The impatience of today. If you have something you need to get done, just start it. Just at least start.
That's why I have you on the interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it now.
Do it now.
I'm following your lead. So you are not only the vice chair of the Dade County Commission, but you're also the chair of the TPO. Yes,
I am. And this is my second consecutive term. When I was on the TPO, as the mayor of Miami Gardens. And I was the first TPO member, I guess, who wasn't a county commissioner. So who came from one of the cities at least. And so as a county commissioner, my commission colleagues actually nominated me again. And so I'm the TPO chairman again.
That's great. And how many people are on the TPO? Oh, by the way, I don't like to use acronyms because there's a lot of people that don't
understand. Transportation Planning Organization.
No, it's not only that, is sometimes we get into this discussion and people don't know what we're really talking about.
Yes.
So we try to dumb everything down for me. And
for me too, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we try to stay away from acronyms. So,
I think it's around 20 now. The number moves because it's every city that has over 50,000 people, and all the county commissioners, and a gubernatorial appointee and a member from the school board. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fluid number. When your city gets above that number, I think a couple of years ago we added Doral and some other cities a couple of years ago.
I think it's town of Cutler Bay is really close,
really
right?
Soon.
If they're not there,
I think absolutely. And so because South Florida is growing, mm-hmm. And so one of the things one of the things why transportation planning is so important is because South Florida is growing so fast. We saw it before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people, leave other places like New York and stuff, and they all moved here. They moved to Florida, but specifically they actually moved to South Florida also. And so we know that we're growing. And how we plan our transit from a regional perspective is very important.
Yeah, we're going to talk about transit really soon, but I want to go a little bit of your background. You were mayor of Miami Gardens.
Yes.
For how many terms?
2 terms. 8 years, yes.
8 years. And then you decided to run for
County Commission.
County Commission, yes. District 1.
District 1, D1.
And then you won in November?
I won in August. I was sworn in November.
Okay. So I got a little bit right, a little bit wrong. You have one son?
One son, little Oliver the fourth.
Oliver the fourth. I saw that. And how old is he?
He's 13.
Oh, that's not a young. No, I got a 13-year-old too. We can compare notes.
He's 13.
He's reaching that age where I'm just like,
yeah, he's definitely there. Yeah, he's definitely there.
Dad, I say, honey, can you go and do your homework? He goes, Dad, I'm on playing video games. I go, no, put the video games away and do your homework.
He definitely has his own little personality.
Yeah.
So
that's great. So we have kids the same age. I can.
So you understand?
Yes, I understand. You understand. It's very frustrating. So tell us What drove you to public service?
Well, Miami Gardens becoming a city, probably. So Miami Gardens becomes a city in 2003. And if I was a lawyer already, but if Miami Gardens hadn't become a city, I might never run for public office. But Miami Gardens becoming a city was an important landmark. You know, it's a pretty large area. But when I was growing up, it was unincorporated Dade County. And I didn't know any of the people who represented us, like not on the county commission or in any of our state reps. I didn't really know any of them. And we became a city. And the idea was that we could actually have the same things that other communities have. And so I always like to point out the difference between a city and a community. A city is something that's created pursuant to state law or county ordinance. Cities are just a function of the law. A community is the stuff that allows you to be someplace to live, work, and play. It's someplace where you actually live. Well, Miami Gardens for a long time, we didn't have business development there. We didn't have quality open space there. We didn't have recreational opportunities there. And so I run for office in 2003. And by the way, I lost that first election. I lost in 2003. I was later appointed in 2008 and ran subsequently and won a bunch of times. But it was the idea that we could do better, that government could be reflective of our imaginations and our intentions and our sacrifices. We could actually do that together. And so I did that. I was appointed in 2008. I run to maintain that city council seat. In 2012, I run for mayor, and I run against, I think, 6 people.
How are you appointed, just out of curiosity?
City council. The city council appointed me. Yeah, the city council appointed me. The mayor nominated me. The city council appointed me. Mm-hmm. Actually, the person who I lost the election to initially, Senator Oscar Brandon, he and I had become very good friends. And when he went to the state house, he wrote a letter of recommendation saying, hey, you know what? He ran against me, but I stayed active the entire time. I would come to all the city council meetings. I volunteered stuff. And he said, you know, we appointed him.
Glad fly, by the way.
Oh,
that's what they accused me of, because I was a glad fly before I became a commissioner of Palmetto Bay or council person of Palmetto Bay. And they said, you know, you're all such a glad fly. We need to. I
thought they called it learning.
Yeah, no,
they do. Learning.
They do turn it.
Learned. Yeah. So
they do call it learning.
Yeah, they got to learn. Yeah. So a lot of times people run for office, and they run for office. They don't know what the government entity does. They don't know what the legislature does. They don't know what the city does. They don't know what the county does. They just run because they want to have a position, not because they want to actually do something. I ran for office wanting to do something. I ran for office wanting to create a city, a community that would actually be something that my mom and my dad would have been proud of, and something my son would want to come back to. And we had a lot of success in Miami Gardens. Record economic development, record budget surpluses. We had challenges, but we always faced them together. And that importance, that the importance of community, the importance of understanding what you could do and what you could accomplish together is something I bring with me to the county from a county perspective, because we can do big things together. We just have to understand who we are and what we want to be and how we get there together.
So when you were mayor, was there a growth experience of the city itself? Because I come from Palmetto Bay, right? And yeah. Palmetto Bay has been around for a while, but there's still kind of like a growth, a maturity that needs to occur within the village.
Well, I think that there was, but we've seen a lot of that transition. So when you have especially cities that are born, that are relatively new cities, you will always see people who were previously, organizers and people who would constantly protest. Now you have the ability and the responsibility to actually make policy.
Welcome to this community newspaper.
You're criticizing something.
Facebook watch party.
There's always a way in your mind.
This is Marta Perez, and our mission is to expose and inspire.
It's just not going to be perfect.
Excellence in education.
You're always weighing things. It's never going to be absolute. It's always this thing where hey, if I pay for this, then I cannot pay for this. If we go this route, then this area will be neglected. You always have to be in the mode of balancing those things, and you're always just making the best decision you can with the information you're given.
I've seen that not to that degree with finances, but more with zoning code. Oh. Like the average resident doesn't realize that there's laws behind zoning codes, and because somebody wants to build an apartment, then they don't want the traffic that the county or city or whoever can sit there and say, "Oh, you can't build on that land."
Yeah, so zoning is always interesting. It's one of those things that new elected officials always, because when you're making decisions generally, as an elected official, you can make a decision and it's just based on what you think is best. But in zoning, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's a quasi-judicial.
It's a quasi-judicial process.
So you have to be a judge there.
You're
you have
a judge.
To look at the law, right?
You're a judge. So You have to support your decision with competent, substantial evidence. That means always remembering that you never really want things to change. Like if you buy a house like right here and there's an empty lot right here that your kids play in, you always want the lot to remain empty for your kids to play in it. But the truth is that someone owns that lot. Someone owns that lot, and we have to balance their interests too. And so it's always zoning. The zoning fights in Miami Gardens were interesting because we actually changed a lot. I changed a lot of the zoning. And I made the argument to people that if you want something different, you have to do something different. You're telling me that businesses won't develop here. Well, on your major commercial corridors, you have it zoned RU1. So no, businesses will not develop in a residentially, zoned area because everybody has to come in and they have to get a variance. You tell me you want entertainment venues, but there's no real assembly uses that are allowable in your code. You tell me you want to be able to have a diversified tax base, but you didn't zone anything industrial. Well, so those things happen, and we've seen
welcome to this community
industrial parks open and residential development pop up, nice market rate,
excellence in
residences. But then we've also seen a broken business because we changed the zoning, we added some entertainment overlay laws, but then we did something else. I said we were going to make it easier. We just make it easier to do stuff. Look, government should never be standing in the way. Government should never be standing in the way. Yeah, the government should be asking the question, when you say you want to do something, government should ask, well, shouldn't say yes or no. It should say, well, I don't know. Let's see. How would that work?
And it's also, but you also gotta listen to the residents, right?
Absolutely.
In regard to which way they want their city or village or town being run, and that has to be encumbered in your decision-making process.
Well, it does always, but I always caution people about that, because people who don't want something are always prone to come out and speak against it. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times in government, and it's happened to me, we're predisposed to listen to that room, and because they didn't want it and they were the only ones in the room, then the residents don't want it.
Yeah, no. You can have a chamber where there's 10 or 15 residents who don't want it, and they think they represent the rest of the 100,000 or in Palmetto Bay's case, 26,000 residents, and that's not accurate.
Yeah, no. I used to say in my council meeting all the time that I appreciate everyone's opinion, and I'm going to hear you all out. Understand this: when I make my decision, it's the greatest good for the greatest number. I'm really, this is utilitarian. This is based on the people who didn't show up, because people who didn't show up tonight, they did show up on election day, or they had the opportunity to. And when you elect somebody, you elect them to represent everybody, not just the people who show up. And so it's a very difficult thing to explain. But one of the things that I always try to do as elected official is actually lead and explain my process. So I don't come to positions like haphazardly or with no,
but you do come to a decision, right?
I make decisions.
Yeah.
So I will say, hey, well, this is my thinking on this, and I understand that it's not right or wrong. It's just the way that I would do it, but people elected me for that judgment.
And if you explain yourself, it's hard for people to sit there and say, well, okay, his explanation is great, but I still don't want it. Right?
Yeah.
You still get people like that.
You absolutely do.
But it's about explaining and telling people why you're taking this avenue and how you think it's going to benefit them in the long run.
Absolutely. And look, in Miami Gardens is an interesting case, because we've had people who fought me the entire way on zoning changes, like tooth and nail. And I see them at the ribbon cuttings now. And everybody's happy, and they're walking through these stores and these commercial areas, and they're like, "Oh, Mayor, thank you." I was like, "I'm not the mayor anymore, Mayor. Thank you."
Yeah, no, well, you're still called the mayor.
Yeah. So
or the vice chair, or for the TPO, the chair, right?
I was born and raised in Miami Gardens. Both of them just call me Oliver. So they just but it's interesting because they can see it now, but vision is vision. From a leadership perspective, isn't being able to see it once it's happened. It's being able to imagine it when there's nothing to necessarily support it but your efforts.
And vision isn't saying no to everything.
You can't be that way. You
can't do that, right? Because you don't. The problem is, if you say no to everything, you're going to be stuck in that quandary, and you're not going to move. You can, if you make a mistake, right? You can always change the mistake or relook at it and move in a different direction. But if you never move anywhere, you're not doing anything.
Well, yeah, no, it's not an option. Standing still is not an option.
Yeah.
And look, choosing to do nothing is in fact a choice. It is a choice, but let's be clear that just because you stop doesn't mean the world does. And so if you don't find ways to move your community forward, ultimately you are moving backwards.
Absolutely.
Because everyone else is going to keep moving.
So tell me about the transition from city government to county government and the differences between the two.
Miami Gardens was Miami Gardens was smaller. It was clearly smaller, and it was a much closer knit community. And so there was far fewer, I guess, diverging opinions. Like we had people who disagreed, but they would disagree on how you do something, not necessarily most times on what you do or what you were going to do. The county is a political ecosystem in and of itself. The county is the 13 county commissioners, the mayor, all of the department heads who are like, they've achieved, fiefdom status in those departments, some of them, where they know. And so the bureaucracy kind of pushes back against itself, against change. And so it's
well, you know what they say, if you say no or you don't change, your job's safe, right?
Yeah.
In bureaucracy, you can't get yourself in trouble in a bureaucracy if you don't move anything forward.
And so, but I'm excited because I get to be on, the county commission with people who've been there for years, like, Pepe Diaz and Rebecca Sosa and Sally Heyman and Joe Martinez, but then also people like Danielle Cohen-Higgins and Raquel Regalado and Keone McGee and Keon Hardeman and Renee Garcia, all of us bringing a kind of different type of energy and experience, lived experience to the county commission. And so watching us as we try to address the problems that continuously that have confronted our community, what you see is you have that institutional knowledge from people who've been there, the Gene Monesteins of the world. But then you have from the new folks that, well, when we ask like, why do you do it this way? And they say, because we've always done it. That's like a red flag. Once they say that now everybody's paying attention.
Well, it's almost like thinking, once you get, you're there for a while, I think what happens is you build this box around you, right? So if you bring new people in, they're kind of thinking out of that box and bringing new ideas in. It's people are set in their way. It's just, it's human nature, right? They're set in their ways that they don't want to break those four sides of the wall.
Well, and I think, and it's so interesting because you bring up the box and you're right. And so people always say, think outside the box. And I just think the box doesn't exist. The box is a social construct. The box is a social construct. The box is our imagination. Sometimes we create this box and then we create the limitations that it places on us. And then we say we can't do anything or fix something because of the limitations we place on ourselves. And I just don't do that.
I think the box, people think that if they think outside the box somehow or some way, that it's going to cost them the next election. Do you know what I mean? Because and you can't think that way because people are there to serve for the betterment, right?
Yeah.
Of the individuals they're serving.
Yeah.
And if you're always in that box and you're always, kind of stagnant and not bringing in new ideas, I don't think it moves.
Yeah, I think you're right. And from my perspective, my full intention on the county commission is the same intention I had in Miami Gardens as mayor and the city council in Miami Gardens. I want to make the life better for folks in Miami-Dade County. I am trying to imagine and create the Miami-Dade County that moves forward. So we're fond of saying that, this is a world-class community. We're not yet. We're just not. We're a very young community. And we don't understand that because we're all here. But there are communities in this country, there are cities in this country that actually predate the country, that are actually older than America. That's not us. That's not us. We're just becoming. We're still in the process of becoming. And so we're challenging all of those things.
I think we actually really became a city sometime in the 70s.
Yeah.
Because I've been born and raised here. So I know when I was born or raised in junior high school or high school, I don't think there was more than 250, 300,000 people. Yeah. And look where we are today. It's rapidly growing. It's grown tremendously.
It is.
And we still have we're still falling into some of the same traps as a new community is. But yeah, I think we'll be okay.
I think we do. I think we will be okay. Yeah. But it's because I think that the Dade County, specifically our community, this region is going to be defined by all of our lived experiences. And you have people who come here from other places who fled countries and and fled economic situations, and everyone comes here with a zest to create their version of the American dream. And so when you have all of that stuff kind of mixing together, what happens is it comes out to be something different. So we really aren't, I'm not looking for us to be like the next New York or the next LA or the next Boston, or I don't want to be any of those places. I want to be the first Miami. I want to be the first Miami-Dade County, the best Miami-Dade County. Yeah. And so I think that we can do that just with an understanding of without regard to where we came from and what our situation was. Where we are is here, and where we're going is someplace together. Let's figure that out. Let's figure out where we want to go and figure out how to get there.
Mistakes along the way, but you always can correct the ship.
We can course correct.
Really. So talking about some of the initiatives you've taken on since working as a vice chair.
The big initiative that we've been working on right now as a board is addressing youth violence and poverty. We took the FTX renaming money and we're pushing it into programs that actually try to reduce violence and reduce the cycles of poverty that plague some communities. And so it was something that was initiated by Commissioner Keon Hardeman. But the entire board is very serious about it, because we understand that, the American dream has to be something that, for people to be hopeful, you have to believe that something is within your reach. And if you have people who are born into the situation that they will die in, and that cycle of poverty exists in perpetuity, that's something we have to change.
Through generation.
Yeah.
So you have to stop it.
You have to stop it.
You have to stop it. And whatever it takes to throw money into education and other things,
we have to do it.
You need to do it.
We have to do it.
Absolutely.
And so that's a big thing. Listen, transportation. I'm the chair of the TPO. So transportation. When I became a county commissioner, I had this foolhardy idea that because everyone said that they wanted to have these rapid transit corridors, that we needed to try to find a way to build them, but not just build them, to operate them. And so I've started the conversation of the RTZ zones, and having the conversation with all my county commissioners, colleagues on the county commission, people in the community, neighborhood groups. I'm starting to meet with mayors all across the county now to just talk about what we have to do. Because, and I will never forget this, I met with one of my colleagues on the county commission, and my colleague, they said, well, I don't see why we have to change anything. And I thought that was interesting.
They sat in traffic?
Yeah, I thought it was so very interesting.
When was the last time they got in their car and drove 2 hours to work to go to downtown Miami?
So we don't have, one of the things that prevents us from truly being a world-class community is we don't have a world-class transit system. We really have to address it. And with the number of people moving here, and the ability of transit to actually connect and help with so many things, like if a good transit system helps with the affordability of housing, not affordable housing, just affordability. People go to work every day who can't afford subsidized housing, or who don't qualify for subsidized housing. They can't afford to live here where they work. But that's
teachers can't work where they teach. Police can't work where it's
the strangest thing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so, but we've normalized that feeling.
Yeah,
we just completely normalized it. We
and accepted it.
Yeah, and so that's a very dangerous thing, because we could become a community that people couldn't afford to live in and work in, and that will be problematic for our future. We know that doesn't work. So things like the affordability of housing, things like mass transit, having these corridors, using these corridors to spur economic development, use these corridors to provide an opportunity for people to actually get out of their cars and get some of the cars off the road and go from point A to B, north, south, east, west, go over to the beach, which is a major hub for employment and tourism. Those things are important because those things speak to how we actually become the community that we're supposed to be, that we're meant to be in the future. And so I've heard a whole bunch of, someone told me that we passed this on first reading and we're taking it away.
Yeah. Let's stay up. Let's hold off on that for a second, because that's one of the reasons I wanted it. I definitely wanted you on the program. So you're in TPO, you're the head of the TPO, the chair of the TPO. Mm-hmm. You brought forth rapid transit zone with Commissioner McGee, I think. Is it a joint effort? It's not a joint effort.
Okay. We both we've had a sunshine meeting on it.
Okay.
But it's not a joint effort, and I met with most of my colleagues. Okay. And so I'm looking to get everybody's opinion. And so most times what happens in the county commission is you bring an ordinance and it goes to first reading, and then people talk about it at committee, and people come and it's a big fight. I want to do this a little different because it's really the biggest thing we've done in transit in a while.
We're doing facting fighting.
Yeah, I want to talk to people. So I purposely don't have like an official, like we have a working document. So after I meet with people, we try to incorporate their ideas into the document. So we're trying to see to the greatest extent possible, how can we create something that is not everyone is happy with.
Afternoon,
like the developers don't necessarily are in love with it. The cities aren't in love with it. The county's not in love with it, but it's something that works and allows us to grow and work together. And so that's the goal right now. And I'm just meeting and talking with people.
Good afternoon.
So the TPO has focused on, or you focused on what you call rapid transit zone. One of those rapid transit zones, I believe, starts at South Miami or Pinecrest and goes all the way down to Homestead. Is that correct?
I think that's the south. Yeah.
South. Okay,
yeah.
It's like number 6. And there were a bunch of mayors who got together and probably village managers a couple weeks ago, I guess, or last week, and had a meeting about.
I wasn't invited.
You weren't invited? I'm sorry.
I wasn't invited.
If I knew about it, I would have sent you the invitation. So what came up at a CAL meeting in Palmetto Bay, and I really wanted to get through some of my other questions, but we'll jump to Palmetto Bay. Is a councilman who it was a CAL meeting who said that it's dangerous for the communities down here. They've already passed it on first reading. Everybody needs to be up in arms. It's going to kill our village. It's going to kill Cutler Bay. It's going to kill Pinecrest. Everybody should be with pounding on their chest. They actually said they're pounding on their chest and writing your commissioners and stopping this, because it's going to change everything the way we live. Is there any accuracy in anything that he said? No. It hasn't gone to first reading.
No, it hasn't gone. We don't even have a document.
You don't even have a document, right?
We don't have a document yet.
So, the Village of Palmetto Bay, I know this, they like to throw out red herrings every once in a while to take everybody's eyes on how they're running the Village of Palmetto Bay. So you just happen to be the red herring of the week. And I've got to tell you, I apologize for the residents of Palmetto Bay, and I apologize for the council. But nothing has been said. You're on a fact-finding mission.
Yeah.
Okay. There's it's just basically a fact-finding mission.
Well,
right?
it is. And listen, I committed to talk to and meet with like the League of Cities, and Mayor Cunningham actually came to one of the Sunshine meetings with Mayor Losner, and I told them, hey, listen, I want to meet with you all too. They asked me if I would meet with the Southern mayors. I said, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. This is the thing. What I've heard is interesting, because it's everybody's kind of reacting to conversations that people have been having over the last 20 years.
Gossip.
And so what I'm doing is trying to craft something with everybody inclusive that provides for Dade County over the next 20 years. So they're talking about promises that were made in the past and things and experiences that they had. And I can't speak to what was said and what was promised and what was done 20 years ago. What I can say is this.
The sins of the father.
I'm a new county commissioner, a former mayor, someone who understands and believes in the rights of cities. So I would never completely disenfranchise cities, because I was the mayor of a city. So I was the president of the League of Cities. So it was on the national board for the National League of Cities. I believe in cities' rights. So it's not like I'm a big city guy in that respect. I just think that we have to have real conversations about this. So in the past, people have had the conversations and they said that everyone can get rail. The truth is that we know that the federal formula requires some things.
Mass.
Yeah, it just requires
mass.
It requires
right?
it.
Absolutely.
It absolutely requires it.
They were complaining, because I was on a TPO committee, not the committee, but some work down in Homestead, that they were talking about what they were going to put up, bus or rail and everything. And they said, you just don't have the mass along the line to get the dollars from the federal government to build a above grade metro mover like you do from, South Miami to downtown. I may be simplifying.
Well, no, it's a mass of people. And so I understand traffic is bad. Traffic is actually bad everywhere in South Florida.
It's picked up, by the way.
Yeah. So, but when we're asking the federal government to pay for half of something, we're asking them to pay for half, and then we're asking the state to pay for 25%, and then we're trying to contribute to 25% locally. We're going to have to fit within certain formulas. I'm not saying that there has to be density down south. What I'm saying is this. Is that we all need to have that that captures the voices, opinion of everyone, come up with a way to make a decision, get the plan, and then work the plan. But right now, all we've had is decades of people promising stuff and no one actually doing anything.
Yeah, but the problem is that the rumors and innuendo, like the cow meeting, didn't help. Okay, 40-story buildings right on the east and west side of Pinecrest, Cutler Bay, and that doesn't help, right?
Yeah.
That does nothing but kind of set people off where they're already going in there with negative connotations of what's coming, right? So instead of sitting there and saying, look, we're going to do something, and it's going to be to the benefit of everybody, the people that take mass transit and the community involved. But don't start the fire when there's no fire there, right? Because you're gonna hurt the process.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if those people are actually they don't care about the process. I think that they're reacting to, and I think that we all have like community, like, anxiety and angst based on how you've been burnt in the forest, like that baggage that we carry with us is that emotional baggage. So communities have emotional baggage, and it happens up north too. Like we think that every time you build anything with density up north, it's going to be public housing. So no one loves density. So no one loves density.
Well, nobody loves density, number one, because of traffic.
Traffic, but
okay, right. But to get rid of the traffic, you got to have better mass transit.
You gotta have better. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah, really.
It's very strange, but we've never actually had the conversation. We've always just said what we wanted, and politicians have told them that they could have it, and those things are inconsistent. We have to find ways to accommodate people along mass transit lines, and that doesn't mean 40-story buildings. It doesn't mean that at all. And some areas of the community.
Oh no, they
just won't work.
Wait, at the cow meeting, they were actually showing 40-story buildings. I go, that's ridiculous.
So they created a document. So
they actually created a document. They showed a slide presentation on how it would go. The little circles around the transit areas, and how these how half a mile off these transit areas are going to be 40-story buildings, and the other areas are going to be 25-story buildings. And all these people are sitting there, and they're going, "No, that can't happen. You're taking a single-bedroom community and you're destroying it." But that's not the intent. That wasn't the intent.
It's not the intent, and it's not what's going to happen. It's not even just it's not the intent. That's not what's going to happen. But more importantly, and I think that maybe because it's never been done this way before, I'm not going to bring forth something that removes cities from the decision-making process. So I don't think that the county needs to be the sole decision maker. I think the county and the cities need to work together to figure out how this stuff works. And the importance of it is this. Look, independent of being able to build a mass transit system, if we're going to really have rail at some point throughout the entire breadth and width of this county, and we need it, we're going to have to find a way not just to build it, but to operate it. Yeah. And so the area along these corridors are part of tax increment financing system, the TID. So the increase in the value of the property gets poured back into operating the system. We have to find a way to allow the system to operate so that the rides aren't $25 or the trains only come twice a week. And so having real adult conversations.
And you don't have trains that are from the 1980s still operating until 2018.
Yeah.
Okay. When you sat there and you voted on a sales tax, right, of a 0.5 cent that was supposed to go towards mass transit.
Yeah.
But you're not to blame. I'm not blaming
you.
I'm not even worried about that. I'm just telling you the history.
But that's our history.
The history is smoke and mirrors with what should have been, what they should have done with a 0.5 cent and other mass transit and what they did with it.
And so now we're forced, because the county exists in perpetuity and people's memories are long, we're forced to actually argue, defend, and rebut all of the things that happened long before I was even, in college or in law school, elected or anything like that. And that's fine.
Unfortunately, I remember it.
Well, and that's fine. What I'm going to say, though, is that we're going to continue to look. The misinformation is going to be out there. That's going to happen. My commitment is that we're going to continue to move forward and have the real conversations that I said we would, and try to find that sweet spot that empowers the cities, empowers the county, and allows us to actually come up with a plan together. And this isn't about something happening overnight. This is about the future growth of this county.
Goals,
yes,
right?
Yes, it's the future growth of this county.
I've been in business, so you have short-term goals and you have long-term goals and you have even longer-term goals. But I still think misinformation really hurts.
It hurts
the process.
It
hurts the
process.
And it really needs to stop. I know it needs to stop from my village where I live. So let me get to another question. How do you balance between the growth that people think should be, not necessarily that is going to be, but people should be on that Metro Air line, to where different cities like Pinecrest or wherever, where it really is a single family home community. How do you balance that?
Well, I think that it doesn't have to look the same everywhere, and I think that's why having a system that empowers cities to actually speak into the system, also speak into the microphone on this, because and it's not just the Pinecrests of the world, like the El Portales of the world. These are cities that are single family. So clearly you wouldn't have mass density along those areas. It would probably just be in those areas on the nodes, in very specific areas where there was actually some type of probably transit oriented development. It wouldn't change. You don't have to change the character of the entire area. You don't have to line the corridor with 40 story buildings. That's not how that works. And that's not practical. It's not what anyone's proposing. And
well,
so,
nobody's proposing anything yet.
Yeah,
Let's go back to the fact that all you're doing is looking for people's opinions, and it's a fact-finding mission.
We have this one document that's not even an ordinance yet that we just keep on incorporating and changing the ideas. And so now the new thing is that we're working on a shared jurisdiction between counties and the county and the cities. It's this.
Well, they used to have that. They used to have these community councils.
Yes.
And if a developer went to the community council and they were shot down, they go to the city, okay, and ask them for development rights. I don't think that's around. It's not around much longer, and they were kind of throwing that up too. Oh, we're going to go back to the community council, where if somebody goes to Palmetto Bay or Pinecrest, they don't like the zoning, they're going to go to Dade County to have it over.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it's not that. It's not like that. And so it's just going to be a real interesting conversation, because the idea, and this is what we know that, and history's taught us, that eventually change wins. Change wins eventually. That things are going to change. We know that people are going to keep moving here. We know that traffic is going to get worse.
Yeah. Did you read how many people switched out their New York license for their Florida license? Well, like 35,000 people or something. Recently,
and those are just the ones who switched their license.
Yeah, that was.
Those are just the ones who switched.
Yeah.
And so we know that ultimately that something has to happen, and that doing absolutely nothing is not the answer.
It's not an option.
And so what I'm asking for, and not just the cities down south, but the cities all over the county, what I'm asking the developers all over the county, what I'm asking county commissioners, what I'm asking educational institutions and healthcare institutions is, what are your thoughts on it? Let's try to actually have a sensible adult conversation and design a system that allows us to grow forward slowly together. Because if we don't plan growth, that doesn't mean that there won't be growth. That just means it won't be planned. It's going to be hodgepodge. It's going to be hodgepodge.
And I'm going to tell you something, and that's what's happened historically in Dade County. It's a lot of pieces that are moving that are not moving together. They're moving separately. And that's why we're in the position we're in. I mean, I know somebody who lives in Homestead, and it takes them an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to downtown Miami. Now, you want to talk about quality of life? You're working an 8-hour day, okay? But you're sitting in your car an hour and a half, or a bus for that matter, an hour and a half to 2 hours. There's no quality of life. How do you spend your time with your family? How do you raise kids?
No, it's a challenge. And so, and that's why even things like, so when people talk to me about traffic and gridlock, and they talk to me about easing traffic, I don't just talk about mass transit. I'll talk about things like working in place, staggered work days, diversity of your employment centers. Right now, people are going to very specific places, basically in Miami-Dade County at the same time, trying to, and that's what creates your congestion. It's not just the number of cars, it's that we all have to go there at the same time. Well, what COVID has shown us is a lot of people may be able to work remotely. That's very possible. We have to do some investing in our, our digital, our Wi-Fi type infrastructure for that to be manifested. But that's what has to, so we know that that's an option, and that could help. We know that having people, having employment centers that are closer to where people live, that could help. We know that having staggered work days, people not all trying to, and that's why you ever wonder why traffic is substantially better when kids aren't in school. It's not like all these kids are driving to school. They're not driving to school. The teachers are driving to school though, and the bus drivers are there. And but if you just take those, if you just have those folks not on the road at the same time, traffic is better. So we can learn from that type of experience.
Change the school board. I mean, I always thought that the hours of school were a little funky too.
Well, we don't have to change the school board. We could actually stagger work days. So we could actually, hey, you know what? You all start at 8, you all start at 9, you all start at 10. We can find innovative ways to address congestion. It doesn't have to be this one thing, but it does have to be something.
No, every little bit. You're not going to find one shot that's going to be a cure-all. You're just not going to, right? It has to be a little from here and a little from there and everything, and eventually all those little pieces will work.
Yeah, this isn't Johnson & Johnson. It's not one shot. It's not one shot.
Actually, they have 2 shots.
No, they have 2 shots. Johnson & Johnson has 2 shots.
Isn't it 2 shots?
No, Pfizer has 2 shots.
That's right.
Yeah, Moderna has 2 shots.
By the way, have you had your shot?
I have.
Okay, good.
I have.
Because
I'm
we have
vaccinated.
no glass.
Yeah,
we used to have glass here, and then I never had.
I am.
You know.
And listen. By the way, I encourage people to get vaccinated.
So do I. A lot. So 50% of the country right now, adults. Yeah. So where do you go from here? I mean, where do you go to start really researching and eventually implement what your thought processes or the data that you collected comes back?
I keep meeting with people. I'm going to keep meeting with people. I think the next step is probably, I think they're scheduling the League of Cities. I'll meet with the executive board of the League of Cities. We'll go from there. I'll talk to them and get their ideas on it. I'll meet with mayors as they'll have me and have those conversations.
Have you been turned down by any mayors?
I have not been turned down by a mayor yet. There are a couple of people who don't necessarily have an interest in meeting and talking about changing the system because they don't want to change the system. And I can appreciate their opinion. I just disagree.
Yeah, it's not going to. First of all, their opinion. I understand everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but it's not going to help by saying the system's not going to change because the system is going to change and it's going to be without their opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
without their input, not their opinion, but without their input.
Well, it's going to be without us planning. Yeah. So our situation will change, whether we plan for it to change or not. It's going to change. The question is going to be whether that change will be planned and structured in a way that maximizes our growth and also allows us to actually decrease congestion and have better quality of life. It's going to change. So we know that the forces that we can't control will continue to be the winds that push us. We understand that. The question is how will we design our future, or will we let the future just kind of happen?
In college, they talk about the hierarchy of needs. I don't remember if you
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay.
Yes.
And to me, one of the needs right now is for better quality family time.
Yes.
And you just can't get that with what's going on with the gridlock of a city, right?
You can't. And we can't.
Quality of life does not change unless you move the Dade County, not the city, but Dade County, because there's a bunch of cities forward to where where you're talking about.
And I think everything has to be on the table with that. And so it's interesting, but we'll keep having these conversations. And eventually, hopefully sometime later this year, we would have had a bunch of conversations, collected a whole bunch of opinions, got some information, and we'll be able to take a plan that kind of captures to the greatest extent possible, the opinions and a process that would allow us to move forward together as a community. I think that's where we go forward.
So is this, you became chairman of the TPO this year?
Again, I was reelected.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so you're just reappointed, but were you chair? I'm sorry.
I was the chair of the TPO my last 2 years as mayor of Miami Gardens.
Got it. Okay.
And now I'm the chair of TPO my first 2 years in county commission.
I did a lot of research, but I didn't catch that. So is this still like your goal? This is your goal to get it? And is it just not? I'm sure it's just not for the South Corridor, but people in Kendall are hurting too.
Yeah.
And Aventura is every place pretty much is gridlock in the city.
Every place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I get to hear the concerns and complaints from everyone about it. It's interesting though. I don't know that my goal is to actually do it. My goal is that we're going to actually have a real conversation and come up with a plan. So right now, what we have is people yelling at each other and people complaining continuously. and people saying what they want, but not understanding everybody wants an omelet, but no one wants to crack an egg. We need to have a real conversation as a community about where we want to go from a mass transit perspective, how we want to address congestion, how we want to address urban sprawl, how we want to address the affordability of housing, how we want to address these things. And then we come up with a plan and move forward. Right now, everyone's saying what they want and no one's planning. I believe that real leadership doesn't necessarily plan to finish it. It just plans to keep working along, making progress. And so we're going to make progress on that conversation. We're going to make progress on that conversation. And someone is going to tell, we're going to have a truthful and factual conversation about what we can do, what we can't do, and how long it's going to take us to do it. And so this idea that we can build rail in 4 years or 8 years, that's not true. That's just not how that works. What we can do is we can start the process. We can do the environmentals. We can make our applications to the federal government. This idea that there's going to be 40-story buildings popping up, no, that's not true. What we can do is have smart planning for smart development to prepare for what we know is going to be necessary in the future. So we know that these things are going to be necessary. The question is, will we prepare for them? And my goal is to help us prepare for them.
So what is your biggest impediment to moving this along at the present time? Is it just that people just don't want to get off the sidelines? Or is it that the old timers just think that we are
history is an impediment, because we all come to every situation with baggage, and our baggage basically is our lived experience, what's burnt us before. And so everyone's been burnt before. The people down south have been burnt before. The people up north have been burnt before. So having us to be able to really come to a position of honesty together as a county and say, this is what we want to do and this is how we can do it. People have been burnt before. And that's just that's their real situation. And so when I hear the comments and stuff, I understand that they're not necessarily responding to me in some instances. They're responding to what's happened previously over decades. And so how we actually address that, how we come together and get past what was and move forward into what can be, is going to ultimately be the story of how we progress as a community.
So one last question, because our time's running, and I want to tell you again, I really appreciate you being here. Hopefully you'll be back on the show in a couple months. And this is a really tough question. Do you think that any kind of increase in taxes or sales tax will be necessary in the near future to help mass transit?
We're not modeling that right now. We're not modeling that. So that's not something that we're planning for. I think that before you get there, you really have to have a conversation about what all you want. Because what also has happened in the past is people have said that you can have everything and only pay for half of it. That's not true. So one of the things that I like to do is straight information-based leadership. I understand aspirationally what our goals are. This is what we have to work with. And so we constantly try to model what the corridors look like to build, and the rapid transit zones model what they're going to look like to operate. So to operate, I know I need to pull more revenue in the system, and I don't want that revenue to necessarily be tax dollars. So I need to pull it from the value of the property along the corridors, which will increase because of the corridors. So that's what this allows us to do.
So it most likely will come from real estate. It might come from real estate taxes. It might not come from
it'll come from that. A lot of it will come from that increment value increase. And we've had some victories that in the legislature this past year that should help with some funding. But it's just finding a way to take a little bit here, find savings, understanding that what was done with the half penny previously didn't necessarily meet the expectations of what we thought should have been done.
Didn't even come. Don't take this the wrong way. It didn't even come close to why I voted for it. It didn't come close to meeting my expectations as a resident.
My mom and my great aunt and everyone's told me no, that's not what it was going to do. And I could appreciate that, but I can't go back in time and correct that. So I can only, I come to this point in time. Honestly, I move forward from this point in time. honestly. And I think that what will the biggest impediment, is history. I think it's skeptics. I think it's critics. That Teddy Roosevelt is not the critic that counts, not the man who points out whether the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deed could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena. What I hear is people criticizing and no one actually suggesting how we actually get it done. So it's all right to criticize someone else's idea, but if you know that we have to get this done, don't just criticize it.
Come up with a better plan.
Come up with a better plan.
Come up with a better plan, right?
I don't have.
I'm all for you. I'm all for that.
I don't have a proprietary interest in what we do. I just want us to do something that we actually makes it better. If you have a better plan, let's hear it.
Lots of ways to skin a cat, right?
Yeah. So
once again, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching, sorry I have a live call-in show, but we didn't get to any phone calls. I apologize.
Oh, wow.
That's why I have to have you back.
Absolutely.
Definitely come back. And I want to thank you, Vice Chair Oliver G. Gilbert, for being here. I wanted to get the whole thing in there.
That's like my government name.
And there you go. And thanks, guys. Good night. Facebook. Everybody stay safe. Get your shot. And see you next week.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.